Right. Shalom, 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 shalom. I want to start off by giving all the praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to my elders and apostles, a great millstone, which are the men that rule well, the men that taught us his truth, peace, blessings, and salutations as always be to the elect. And Lord's will, the title will be Use Your Discretion, which it's a spirit. I was gonna actually do this lesson the day prior. Today's so-called Sunday. I was actually going to do it the day before camp and make this much shorter, but I wound up that same night having a conversation with one of the heads here in the DC church, the big bros, Leon Allah. Had a long conversation with him, and that really it did inspired me, man, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai to add another precept to the lineup of the precepts that I had, and to bring in different angles and basically just a little more extra to say to further edify, because originally I was going to make this lesson for young brothers that during the holiday season, right, quote unquote holiday, Esau's holidays, right. I was going to make this lesson so that for the young brothers, so that they can be discreet during the holidays, which is still that. But I also realized, I said, man, let's this truth, man, there's many layers, there's multi-layers to these scriptures, man. So let's apply it to everything, not just the holiday season, because really we don't, it's just the holiday season is when the scope is on you because everybody thinks you're going to be involved. But really we need to be discreet all year round. Okay, so use your discretion, because when you go into discretion, it goes into prudence and being able to distinguish things out, being able to discern. Right? And the number one thing that you have to do in this truth is discern the times. Realize what time you're in. What are you in the season of? All right? Because, it's life or death at the end of the day. Obviously, we're not talking about, just because you eat turkey, that's life or death. That's not what we're talking about, because so-called Thanksgiving was a few days ago. Today's Sunday, was on, Thursday? Or Thursday. Okay? I'm talking about, in the near future when martial law, right? When the law comes down in general, Esau's law comes down in general, if you don't use your discretion, you're going to be asked out, man. All right? You're going to be taken up by the flood. The scripture says that the enemy shall come in like a flood, right? So, man, at the end of the day, there's many examples of our ancestors, man, our forefathers that use that discretion, one that comes to mind, two that come to mind, actually, I was talking about the elder with this one, when King David drooled on his beard and was scribbling on the wall or the door, because he was in the midst of he was outnumbered by his enemies. He was by himself, and his enemies were gonna, capture him. So to save his soul, to save his life, he pretended to be mad. Right? That's one example. Now, obviously, that was him using wisdom. That was him using discretion, using subtlety, using craft in righteousness. That's another thing me and the elder was talking about, man. We was talking about we got to use craft in righteousness, man. All right. For example, plantation. You have to be discreet. I remember when I was first coming up. Matter of fact, real quick, another example. Actually, no. Matthew 10 and 16. Let me get a scripture. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Right? So Yahweh Shai told us to be wiser than serpents. Because you have to look at now. You got to study the animals now. What is a serpent? A serpent, its only defense mechanism is the bite. And not even all of them have the poison. Some have the poison, some don't. But all of them have the biting mechanism, right? That's the only biting and constricting. That means that its power is very limited. So we're told to be wise as serpents. A serpent doesn't just attack all willy-nilly. It's not like a bear where it just can try to overpower you. No, a serpent moves wisely because it knows it can only do so much. Once you grab a serpent by the head, that's it. You got it. You could just cut its body and it died. Drain the blood, it dies. Right? And Yahweh Shai said, what? Also harmless as doves. Because that's the thing, us in Israel, we're not fighters, we're survivors right now. We're not in a situation where we're going to overpower Esau. No. Not carnally, at least. Us overpowering Esau is a spiritual thing. Okay? So, we have to use discretion. We have to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Now, like I was saying, though, when it comes down to the plantation, right? That's, talking to the elder about using craft and righteousness, right? Meaning what? Meaning being tricky, using trickery, the scriptures say deceivers yet true, right? So we have to do those things in this world. We have to be discreet. We have to discern when we have to say certain things. Now, I remember back when I first came up, people used to be like, oh, happy Thanksgiving, oh, Merry Christmas. And what are you going to do? When you're young, I don't celebrate. I remember I used to not go all out, but I used to say, oh, I don't celebrate that. That in itself, you would think that's the right thing to say. But in reality, that's just as bad as saying, man, do you know what Christmas is even about? Because it's going to minister questions. Now people want to know, whoa, what do you mean? Are you not a Christian? That's what they're going to say next, right? What are you, Muslim? Right? These are the things. And all it's going to do is put you in a bad situation, because then you have to explain how you're not Muslim, all right? And if you, then you're going to end up in a confusing situation. And then what are you going to say in the end? Oh, in Jeremiah, it speaks about how, they get the tree and they put the ornaments on it, so it's going off. In Jeremiah, the 2nd chapter, all right? And then it's like, well, what was the point of that? Now everybody hates you at work. Now everybody's like, yo, that guy is weird. That's not using discretion. That was, I remember, hey, I'll be the first to say it. I'm making this because I wasn't using discretion as a youngster in the truth, man. I'm still young in the truth, obviously. But I'm saying when I was first coming up, I wasn't using discretion. I never once cursed somebody out and was like, oh, do you know what Thanksgiving really is about? Do you know what, I didn't do none of that. But I used to say dumb shit like, oh, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. And then they ask. And I'd be like, I just don't, and that's never good enough for these jakes. They need to know why you don't celebrate Thanksgiving. They need to know why you're not wicked with them. So, hey, man, at the end of the day, deceivers yet true. You say, hey, man, happy holidays. That saves you a plethora of trouble. Now, that's just at the plantation. With your family, same thing. Just say the same thing, man. Yeah, man, happy holidays. Hey, man, Merry Christmas, man, whatever, man. Be wise. Wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. You don't want to end up cursing out all your cousins. Cursing your cousins out because they said Merry Christmas to you. They're like, yo, what's up with this dude? Because a lot of times, hey, I know for me, I didn't tell none of my extended family to know what I'm about. One of the people that know what I'm about is, my father, my brother, he's in the truth with me. That's all I really got as far as, my immediate family. That's really all I got. All right. So we have to be discreet. All right. Let me get another scripture. Proverbs 2:11. I don't even have a lot of precepts. I just have these three. You don't really need to grab a whole lot. These are very powerful precepts. Matthew 10:16. Man, this is a powerful precept, man. To be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. When you go into how wise a serpent has to move, you understand what the Lord meant by that. Because he said he's sending us as sheep in the midst of wolves, meaning we're a defenseless animal. We're an animal with no real defense mechanism. And we're in the midst of wolves. Yahushua told us we're in the midst of wolves right now. The world, the world, Esau, those are the wolves. You see? So we have to move wisely within the society. You don't want to go to work and start teaching people the truth. You know what I'm saying? That's a lack of wisdom. Okay? Proverbs 2:11. Discretion shall preserve thee. Understanding shall keep thee. What do the scriptures say about understanding? That it says, the scriptures say in Job 28:20. Actually, I'm gonna grab it off camera. I have my second phone with me. It's in the book of Job, or in the Hebrew Ayawab. All right, and let me grab it real quickly. Salakia, bear with me real quick. I wasn't expecting to grab another one. Bet it's a spirit, man. I'm going to let the Spirit do what it do, man. Job 28:28 says, and unto man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. And to depart from evil, which evil means bad time. So to depart from bad times is understanding. So being discreet, using your prudence, using your foresight, that's what discreet is, will preserve you. Another example of our forefathers that used discretion, Abraham. When he went with Sarah to Egypt, he said, hey, tell them you're my sister, because if they know you're my wife, they're going to kill me to take you. Right? And then, what happened. And then, they still ended up trying to take her anyway. They didn't kill Abraham, though. That was him using discretion. When what happened? They still took his wife though, right? But what, the Lord delivered him out of that situation. But that was just another example of a man of the Lord using craft to save his soul. See, that's the thing. That's where the fine lines between tempting the Lord and not come into play. See, because when you're standing up to do something right, but it's not an actual situation where you need to, you can get jacked up. You know, for example, the example of work. You know, you go to plantation, you're really going to sit there and say, man, Christopher Columbus, he was Jewish. He wasn't a Spaniard. He was actually he's actually an Edomite. He's not white. He's an Edomite, and we're the truest. You're not gonna sit there and do that at work, man. Oh, you don't celebrate Thanksgiving because you're an Israelite and they was killing your brothers together. It's like, come on, man. You can't go to work saying that, man. You can be labeled a bug out. You know what I mean? That's what bug outs do, man. You know, you gonna sit there and bug out at work like that, man? Nah. No, you're going to be discreet. You're going to say, hey, man, happy holidays, you know, and keep it pushing. Okay? It says, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee. Understanding, you know, understanding is to be able to depart from evil. That's when you have understanding. You see, that's the thing. When you apply these scriptures, that's what makes you that's what makes you an Israelite, man. That's what really makes you an Israelite. It's not putting on the garment and yelling at Edomites, all right, through a megaphone. No, it's when you apply these precepts and you save your soul. You know? Understanding shall keep thee. Right? It'll keep you out of trouble. It'll understanding what? To depart from evil is understanding. Now you can discern between right and wrong. There's a right place and a wrong time. There's a right place and a right time for to do the right thing. You know? Or, well, no, it's always the right time to do the right thing. But meaning there's a right place and a right time to behave a certain way, all right? And sometimes the correct behavior at the wrong time, that's out of season. That's wrong. You did the wrong thing now. Now you bumped your head, you know? You don't want to get around your family, start cursing them out. You know, Thanksgiving, Christmas time come around. We got to be discreet, man. You know, you got to use your wisdom, you know? Hey, yo, grab your plate of food and go, man. You know, it's that simple. You know, pray over your food like you normally do to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You know, be discreet. You know, I had to do it this year, man. You know, I got invited over to my mother-in-law's and they're super duper, not Orthodox, but they're super duper Christian. You know, I just had to sit there and be wise. You know, I didn't let it get to me. Of course, we hate, you know, the evil of this world. But at the end of the day, man, you know, what are you really there doing? You know, as a man of the Lord, what are you really there doing? You're there to get a plate of food, man. To get some free food. You know, use the world, don't abuse it. Okay, so it says, understanding shall keep thee. So now let's go to Ecclesiastes 7 and 16, man. Oldie but goodie. All right, you never want to. That's the thing, man. At the end of the day, it's all about balance. You know, so we have to keep a balance with everything that we do, and a part of that is using your discretion. See, that's the thing, man. When you use your discretion and you do the right thing, you answer people the right way. You're not going to bump your head and you save yourself a world of trouble. You know, don't put hell on yourself, man. Ecclesiastes 7 and 16, be not righteous over much, neither make thyself over wise. Right? It says, why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Because then what you start bugging out at work talking about, man, and you know, Christmas was when they was massacring the Israelites, which are the true Christians. Like, man, no, that's not going to get that. You're not going to gain anything from that. You see, you're not going to win nothing. You're going to get nothing out of it. You're not about to save souls by yelling at people at work, talking about, I don't celebrate Christmas. Okay. There's no winning. You see? So that you know, that's you being righteous over much, meaning you're doing way too much. Let me see if I can find that in a different translation real quick in my second phone. Ecclesiastes 7 and 16 says, don't be excessively righteous. What is excess? Excess is too much of something. So don't be excessively righteous. What's overly righteous? You know, you cursing people out. Man, you're supposed to be celebrating Thanksgiving. Brother, we know that. We know we're not. So don't do it. Let the world do what they do. You know what I mean? Let's say you have a cousin you might have told the truth to, but they never were fully in. They still celebrating Christmas, Thanksgiving, and you gonna sit there curse them out? No, let them be. You know, that's the thing. at the end of the day, when the scriptures speak about us being hated, right, by the world, it wasn't because you go to work and start yelling at people and talking about you an Israelite and people hate you now. Oh, yeah, I'm doing it right. No, that was supposed to be for the name of the Lord's sake. So meaning when the time comes to where there is a decision you have to make, because it will be life or death, aka the MOT to the B, aka Esau trying to get you to transgress the Lord, that's when you stand up for righteousness. Right now, we're not in a situation where you got to bug out and start yelling at people talking about Thanksgiving is this, and that. And, nah. Even just in general, speaking about the truth, the only really right time to do it, obviously the Spirit of the Lord is going to reveal unto you when outside of camp, when to talk about the truth. But for the most part, hey man, camp and amongst brothers, because when we go out there to teach, that's us in the chief place of concourse, dispersing the wisdom. All right. And we have to put these things into practice. You see, that's the thing, man. You can't just be that brother that only practices the scriptures at camp. No. Your daily life is the training grounds. When you go out to the world, all right, and when you're out there and you're living, you're going through your daily life, your daily motion, and you're going through your trials and your tribulations, that's where the training grounds are. That's where you learn to apply the precepts. That's where you learn to be wise, to be discreet. You don't learn every little thing at camp. You don't learn how to apply, you do also learn how to apply discretion at camp, because sometimes you got people that come up and, you might give them the wrong answer, that you might offend them, and then, things like that happen, and you got to, speak a certain way to certain people, right? Oh, they talked about that with the elder too, man. If an old lady come up and inquires, you going to sit there and show her a picture of Caesar Borgia and be like, this mother effing devil right here, you see this effing devil? No. An older woman's going to be like, oh my God, why are you talking to me like that? A senior citizen woman, or an older man, he's going to be like, why are you talking like that, young man? Why are you yelling? Right? See, that's the thing. That's when you have to learn when to do certain things and when not to. Discretion. Discernment. Okay? I'm going to read this again I'm reading in the CSB. So this is Ecclesiastes 7:16 again in the CSB. Don't be excessively righteous and don't be overly wise. Right? You shouldn't be overly wise either. You're thinking about too many technicalities, and now you think yourself out of doing something that you probably should have did. You don't want to put yourself in that predicament. You sitting there overthinking, man, should I have ate that turkey, man? Like, man, if you don't, man, you gotta learn how to not do that stuff, man. How to not, and because that's the other side to it too, man. If you're not ready for that, don't do it. Don't blow your cover now. Be Clark Kent. Don't be Superman all the time, man. At camp is when you have the cape and the S on your chest. When you out in the world, man, Clark Kent, man, put them glasses on, keep your suit on, keep your suit hidden, your super suit hidden. Don't let these people know what you're about, man. Yeah, and sometimes you might run into people, and it's happened to me before. You run into people that know a little bit about Israel, and they kind of end up inquiring to you a little bit because you told them a little bit, and some end up believing, and some end up being like, I never gave up my YouTube personally, but sometimes, for some people, some brothers, you get to give them the YouTube and stuff like that, and they learn. But then 9 times out of 10, though, from my experience, man, these dudes that know that they're Israelites, man, they end up either being a Israelite or they're just a person who knows that they are Israelite, but they don't know nothing about Israel. They don't actually know nothing. Meaning, they just know, oh yeah, I know I'm a Judite, and that's it. They don't know nothing about the northern kingdom. They just know that they the Jews, So it never pays off to do these things at the plantation or just on the street. You run into people, it never pays off, man. You're really going to inquire about the truth. You see somebody with a tattoo, a Hebrew tattoo, you going to talk to them about the truth? Nah, man, that's a sure sign that person's a reprobate silver. Okay? It says, I'm going to read it again. Ecclesiastes 7:16, be not excessively righteous and don't be overly wise. Why should you destroy yourself? Right? Because at the end of the day, when you're doing too much, man, of either or, you're being too overly righteous, overly wise, being overly wicked too. There's such thing as overly wicked, right? You're going to destroy yourself. You got to keep a balance, Hey, King Solomon, what did he say? is in the book of Proverbs, the first chapter. What did he? It might have been the second chapter or the first. Let me actually see real quick. He spoke about the word equity. In the Hebrew, that's mayashar, which is balance. Everything must be done in balance. The scriptures say a false balance is an abomination. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord. Yeah, Proverbs 1. I'm reading this off camera. It's not it wasn't in my precepts, my line of precepts. Proverbs chapter 1 and 3. No, I'll start at 2. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. Right? Actually, I'll start at 1, man. Let me start at 1, and I'm gonna read it in the CSB. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. For learning wisdom and discipline, for understanding insightful sayings. Right? To understand what? To get the understanding of the parables. Right? You read. You know? You learn wisdom. You learn precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. But the main thing that I want to harp on is the application of it. These precepts that I read should be a daily application. See, this is where the true training comes in. This is where when you're in the middle of Jacob's trouble, this is what you're gonna use. You're not gonna think about the breakdown of the 12 tribes chart to save your soul, to save your skin, so to speak. No, you're going to use wisdom. Yahweh Shai said, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. There's going to be times where you're going to have to play the meek role even when you don't want to. And I'm saying that because that happened to me from experience. I've been in situations where, you know, I could have behaved in a carnal way, and I know I would have gotten the quote-unquote carnal victory. But in reality, I would have gotten the carnal loss because I would have gotten in trouble somehow, some way. You know, dealing with niggas, I'm just out doing my thing, and Jake doing too much, and I'm like, man, hey, I'm gonna just take the meek road, man. I had to take the low road. These are the types of things that's gonna save your skin when that time of trouble is here. When the MOTB is made law, you still have to learn when to be wise. You're gonna have to apply being wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. You know, and then there's gonna be times where you're gonna have to apply the force during that time. Not right now, obviously, for the most part, right? So it says, for learning wisdom, discipline, understanding, insightful sayings, for receiving prudent instruction in righteousness, justice, and integrity, right? So it says, actually, hold on. Let me see. Okay, so it says integrity. That word there in the KJV for integrity, they use the word equity. Now, when you go into that word equity, it's the word mayashar, which means evenness, uprightness, straightness, equity, aka what? Balance. Okay? Uprightness, equity, balance. So that's the thing, man. This is all about keeping a balance, not being too righteous and not being wicked. You see, not being too wicked, not being overly righteous to where you're destroying your soul. You see? So it says, verse 4, for teaching shrewdness to the inexperienced. Now, when you read it in the KJV, it says to give subtlety, either or, to the simple. Meaning to give that ability of subtlety, giving that prudence. Right? Because when you go into that word subtlety, it's the word... that's the spirit. It's the word, the Hebrew word, taza... I believe that's the word taza ramah, which means craftiness, right? It's funny. It's one of the words to describe that word is craftiness. But guess what? The main word is prudence, which is another word for wisdom. So using prudence. So these words of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai give the inexperienced prudence. You learn how to be crafty in righteousness and this truth. You know? For what? All for the purpose of you escaping that death to receive deliverance at one day. You know, because right now, this is the training grounds. Right now, we're training for that time of trouble where you're really going to have to apply these precepts. Right? It says, I'll read it again. I'm going to read it in the KJV and then close out, man. I definitely went longer than what I thought I was going to do. Proverbs 1 and 4. To give, and I was talking about wisdom now, to give subtlety or subtlety to the simple. To the young man, knowledge and discretion. right? To make us young men discreet. To learn how to discern between when to do something and when not to discern between right and wrong. You know, that's what these scriptures, that's what makes us wiser men. That's what makes you wise. It's one thing to read 100 million precepts and to know all these precepts and you making these long breakdowns. Hey man, at the end of the day, can you apply these things right here? You know, can you apply discretion? Can you use prudence? You know, do you know how to be discreet in your daily life? See, these are the type of things that makes this wisdom so profitable. And that's what makes it a substance. That's what makes something so valuable, is actually the application of it. You see? So, hey, use your discretion. All right? You be discreet. All right? Do what you got to do to survive at the end of the day. You know? To maneuver in this world, man. That's the thing, man. One of the most important things, man, obviously, is worshiping Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, fearing the Lord and the brotherhood, and doing what you got to do for the brotherhood, right? But at the end of the day, man, when it comes down to your relationship with Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, your own personal relationship with Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, the training grounds are when you're by yourself and no one else is looking. Are you using your discretion? Are you being wise? Are you being prudent? Are you using your foresight? That's another one. Can you see ahead of you? That's what foresight is. Okay? So use your discretion, man. You got to apply these precepts. That's the most important thing for you brothers out there that's up and coming, man. Hey, I'm young and up and coming myself. But for you brothers that's, you know, coming out to the camps, man, you know, you're new to the truth. You know, you're super new. Hey, man, the application and the use of this wisdom, man, is learning how to apply these precepts is one of the most important things you can learn to do. Okay? It ain't about learning every single breakdown right away. It's about learning how to use wisdom to save your soul. To save you, learning how to maneuver in this society, all right, without bumping your head so much. So use your discretion. But nonetheless, that's all I wanted to bring out through the spirit, man. I went on longer than what I thought, but it's all good, man. You know, it's all for edification's sake. So with that, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, B'Hashem, Rachak Kodash, double honors to my elders and my apostles of great millstone, which are the men that rule well and taught us his truth. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. As always, Shalom.